you on?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Can you turn your volume up?
Great. Yeah.
Did you get those two RS numbers?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it. No.
Okay, I'm going to go back and ask the representative to reintroduce those so that the reviser has them. We were on WebEx. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to do so. My first one, RS 0544, concerning concealed carry on campus.
Thank you. Did you get that one, Matt?
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
The
Representative.
next one, RS 0576, concerning sexual assault on campus.
Matt, did you get that one?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Without objection, they are accepted. Thank you, Representative, for coming here.
Thank you all. Good morning.
Okay. Bill introductions are now closed. Folks, the first issue or first item we're going to take up is the continuation. Yesterday, I put on pause House Bill 2224. You should have the revised amendment. And just to recap, Representative Arnberger opened the bill up to be worked. Representative Smith offered an amendment, which is the amendment that is presently in front of you. I like to have hard copies in front of you. Matt, I would like for you to explain the amendment prior to getting a second.
Absolutely. One moment. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me pull this amendment up so everyone can see it. So as we discussed yesterday, and again, sorry to the committee for the confusion in the amendment that was distributed. The amendment starts on page 2. It reorganizes some of that language to make it clear the circumstances in which the court will be ordering a person to be tested for infectious diseases. And that would be the case that if the victim of the crime or the county or district attorney requests the court to order those tests, or if the person arrested stated to law enforcement, to the law enforcement officer making that arrest, that that person had an infectious disease or used words of that effect. Additionally, the change on page 3, as you see right here, comes to the assignment of costs and restitution for any counseling or testing that was provided under this section. The original bill would have the court order that those costs to be passed to the arrested or convicted person. The amendment would strike arrested so that restitution would only be ordered for individuals convicted under the section. Be happy to try to answer questions the committee might have.
Questions for the reviser? Representative Heiberger.
Thank you. I may be missing something, but on section 2 on page 2, I'm not seeing a section A1. Am I missing something, or is that a drafting error?
So, you're right, Representative. Basically, at the beginning, after subsection A, you have that would be A1. So we need to add an a 1. I'll just show this right here. So
Matt,
that would be the amendment.
Can you do that without an amendment? If we just give you,
yes,
if we give you latitude?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Then we'll give you latitude to do that without objection. No objection noted. Further questions on the amendment? I would state that we had one opponent against this bill, and it was Mr. Witt, Tom Witt, who I think is in the audience today. He sent me a text that indicated that he no longer has an objections to the bill if this amendment is attached. And he gives me a thumbs up, and I think that's true. I think they worked with law enforcement on getting this amendment. Now, I would ask for a second on the amendment. Representative Arnberger is the second. Further discussion on the amendment? Representative Smith, you may move your amendment.
I move my amendment.
Thank you. Representative Smith has made a motion to amend. He wishes to move his amendment. All in favor of the amendment to House Bill 2224, say aye. Those opposed, nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The bill is amended. We are back on the bill. Further discussion on the bill? Seeing no further discussion, Representative Arnberger, you can make your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House Bill 2224 as amended favorably for passage.
Do I have a second? Second? Representative Epley? All in favor of passing out House Bill 2224 as amended, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. In opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Motion, bill passes out. And we have a recorded vote. Representative Heiberger, that's a thumbs up, is that correct? Thank you. Representative Wagner, thumbs up. Thank you. No further others? Thank you. We're moving along. We are now bringing up, which we opened the hearing yesterday. We had the proponents yesterday in House Bill 2199. Does any member wish to revise or to go over 2199 again? Seeing none, we will move on to the opponents. I have a number of opponents, and we have some other business at the conclusion of this hearing of the committee meeting today. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8. Each of those will be given 2.5 minutes, and the timekeeper will be the vice chair. Those opponents, when they come forward, when you get the signal, it will give you a signal when you have 30 seconds left. Please stay within the time frame. First up will be Terry Humphreys, Humane Society of the United States, Stray Dog Policy, and others. Good morning and welcome to Federal and State Affairs. Would you push the button? Okay.
Did I do it?
Yeah. And before you start, this is not going to count against you. Okay. I just need to check who's on WebEx. Would you get on the microphone? Thank you. Just want so Connie needs to. Oh, she can read it? We don't need it. All right, thank you. Please go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Terry Humphrey, and I'm the lobbyist for the Humane Society of the United States and Stray Dog Policy. And today I have the privilege of speaking also on behalf of a coalition of 39 animal welfare organizations across the state. We are speaking today to you not because we have a position in support or opposing sports wagering. We are speaking to you because if sports wagering legislation would impact greyhound racing, we have a concern about that. And House Bill 2199 indeed has an impact on greyhound racing. It does incentivize the return of greyhound racing in 2 ways, and we're going to ask you to address these with an amendment. First, House Bill 2199 permits racetrack gaming facility managers to offer sports wagering. According to the Kansas Expanded Lottery Act, if they do that, they must run live greyhound racing in order to offer sports wagering. For this reason, the bill should be amended to exclude racetrack gaming managers from offering the sports wagering, and that can be done in new section 1B2 by removing all references to racetrack gaming facility managers in the bill. And you have my testimony, and it refers to these amendments. Our second concern is that the bill, its definition of sporting event, House Bill 2199 only excludes sports betting that occurs in Kansas. And this bill should be amended so that it excludes sports betting anywhere for things that happen outside of the state. You also have my amendment that would make that change as well. With the adoption of those two amendments, our concerns will be addressed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to take questions at the end, if that's agreeable.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Next up is Crystal Swan Blackdeer, Leavenworth County Humane Society. It's by WebEx. Crystal, are you on WebEx? She's not on. Okay. I'm going to move right along to Kate Fields, Humane Society of Greater Kansas City, again on WebEx. Kate?
Great.
Are you on?
Thank you.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And thank you for your time and your service. I'm Kate Fields. I'm the CEO of Humane Society of Greater Kansas City. We're located in Kansas City, Kansas. I'll be brief. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to everyone. But as a fourth generation of Kansas City, Kansas, I've seen racetracks fail. And in our community, it was a horrific sight where it was an inhumane, unprofitable, and quite frankly, 80 dogs were left to die. And what happens is, generally, the nonprofits are left to pick up the pieces. It's an unprofitable business. That's why it's slowly dying across the country. But it's also inhumane to the animals who are used, quite frankly, left as collateral damage. In 2008, a lot of cleanup had to happen at the Woodlands because dogs were just left there to die. Greyhound racing is an embarrassment. It's not profitable and will be a strain on local shelters and animal controls wherever it happens. I agree with Terry Humphrey. I think it was a very thoughtful admission or actually deletion from the bill. So anyway, thank you for your consideration. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kate. Next, we have Terry Garber with ks.gov on WebEx. Terry, are you there?
I'm here.
Great. You have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Terry Garberg. I'm a Kansas constituent and a member of Kansas City REGAP. There are 3 physical dog race tracks in Kansas today, all inactive at this time. HR 2199 sets up a route for them to become active parimutuel dog racing tracks. I want the bill to be amended to remove that possibility. This is why. Greyhound racing is inhumane to dogs as well as to the small animals that are used as live lures for training. Anyone who rejects these proven facts at this point is either in a state of unbelievable denial or more likely lying for their own personal gain. Number 2, it's unpopular. Even Phil Ruffin, former owner of the Woodlands and current owner of Camptown and Wichita tracks, stated in 2015, quote, "Parimutuel is not a viable business anymore anywhere in the country," unquote. Wagering on live greyhound racing in Kansas declined by 95% from 1990 to 2007. Number 3, it's fiscally irresponsible. It will cost Kansas more than we could ever hope to gain from it. This revenue-losing state of the industry is a good reason to stay out. Even aside from parimutuel gambling monitoring, dealing with the bad actors involved within this industry takes time and money. The NGA likes to say they self-monitor. History has shown they don't. Number 4, it adds to our dog overpopulation problem. Greyhounds, notoriously overbred and in the hopes of getting a fast one, increase the burden of unwanted dogs in our state. Why reestablish an industry that purposefully breeds dogs that do not have homes? Number 5, it may soon be illegal anyway. Commercial dog racing is now allowed in only 7 countries in the world. The U.S., with just 4 active tracks remaining in 4 different states, is likely to drop out of that group. The Federal Greyhound Protection Act will finally put an end to this abhorrent business. Kansas should be focused on industries that have a future, not just a sordid past. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to go to Midge Grinstead with the Humane Society of the United States on WebEx. Are you there?
I am here. Sorry, got a frog in my throat.
You're fine. You have 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Midge Grinstead. I'm the state director for Kansas for the Humane Society of the United States. I appreciate the opportunity to speak from home this morning, so thank you. On behalf of our members, supporters, and advocates for the Humane Society of the United States, we oppose House Bill 2199. Greyhound racing is an inhumane activity that has been rejected across the United States and by your constituents. It has economically failed everywhere. You heard from Terry Garber about the states that still have it. Of the 4 that still have tracks, 2 are phasing them out, with Texas coming right behind Arkansas and Iowa. So that will leave 1. The decline in greyhound racing is due to increased public awareness of how the dogs are treated in the cruel and inhumane industry. Dogs live their lives 20 to 23 hours in kennels. They're fed raw 4D meat. They're given no veterinary care. And when they're disposed of when the industry is finished with them. House Bill 2199 will increase greyhound breeding and suffering to the dogs. As a past shelter director, I can tell you that I've witnessed firsthand the impact to shelters and rescues and public agencies when it comes to picking up the damage left by this industry. We would ask you to vote against House Bill 2199 and or amend it as Terry Humphreys spoke about. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Next one would be on WebEx also, Jasmine Cowell, Southwest Kansas Humane Society. Jasmine, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Please go forward.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jasmine Kyle, and I'm the director of the Southeast Kansas Humane Society. Today, I'm speaking on behalf of our organization and a coalition of animal welfare supporters in Southeast Kansas who oppose greyhound racing. Our organization does not have any position on sports wagering until such legislation permits wagering on greyhound racing, an incredibly inhumane sport. In order for racetrack gambling facilities, racinos, to open and offer sports wagering, they must run a minimum number of live greyhound races. This means that this makes sports wagering at racetrack gaming facilities reliant on live greyhound racing and provides a financial incentive for the return of this cruel activity. This bill must be amended in order to stop the return of greyhound racing in Kansas. If this loophole is left in this legislation, it could mean the suffering and deaths of hundreds of these animals in our state. Cheating is another hallmark of this industry. Before Florida banned greyhound racing in 2019, there had been 419 greyhound drug positive tests in Florida, including 68 that were positive for cocaine. Greyhounds have also been found with painkillers and opiates such as Novocaine and oxycodone in their system. Females are routinely given anabolic steroids to build muscle and prevent loss of race days during their heat cycles, a practice which both triggers animal welfare and race fixing concerns. When operating a nonprofit no-kill animal shelter, we're usually at full capacity with almost 100 animals at a time. We always have a waiting list as well for animals that are trying to be rehomed. Greyhound racing would put an extra load of animals on the state of Kansas's humane societies and animal rescues due to the overpopulation brought in by this sport. The racing industry exacerbates an overproduction of these dogs, which simply displaces other homeless animals and diverts resources needing to address these challenges. With so many animal shelters holding on by threads due to COVID-19.
Jasmine, you have 30 seconds.
Gotcha. This situation would be disastrous for our state. Thankfully, dog racing is banned in 41 states. It has been proven by other states that this is not a profitable sport and that a vast majority of citizens are mobilizing in opposition against greyhound racing. In closing, we respectfully request that you oppose House Bill 2199 to guarantee sports wagering does not include greyhound racing in the state of Kansas. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, ma'am. And next up would be Cher Oliver, KC Regap by WebEx. Are you on? Cheryl? Cheryl, are you on WebEx? Does not appear to be. We'll move on to Nika.
Mr. Chair.
Are you on? Please go forward.
I'm Nika Orbach, but I think a gentleman was trying to say something to the chair. Was somebody else trying to speak?
I asked for Cheryl Oliver.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This is Jordan Milholland with KLRD. Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say it appears Cher Oliver appears to be online, but she may have been muted. So I was just going to bring that to your attention.
I will come back to her then. I'll take up Nika, and then I'll come back to Cheryl Oliver. Nika, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Nika Orbach. I speak to you today on behalf of the Kansas Animal Control Association. We are a statewide organization representing animal control officers in the state of Kansas. Our organization is strongly opposed to House Bill 2199 for the reasons outlined by Terry from the Humane Society of the United States. We are deeply concerned that it opens the door to bring greyhound racing back to the state of Kansas. Being employed by Sedgwick County, where a greyhound track existed for quite some time, I have seen firsthand the effects of greyhound racing and the disposed dogs. It puts an undue strain on county animal control organizations and city animal control organizations, and the overbreeding and egregious disposal of animals costs taxpayer dollars. If you choose to amend the bill, our organization has no strong position on sports wagering. Our only position is in the bill as stands due to the doors opened for greyhound racing. I'll keep it brief. I think the points have been made already, sir, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Cheryl Oliver, are you on WebEx at this time? Cheryl Oliver. Last call, Cheryl Oliver.
Mr. Chair, this is Jordan Milholland again. It appears that she might be having issues with her mic because I can see her on WebEx, but we can't hear her.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to see if Crystal Swan Blackdeer is on. She is not on. Okay. Well, I can't wait here all day, so that's all the opponents that I have. I would direct the committee, and all the committee has a copy of the day's agenda. If you'll look at the list on written opponents, there's a long list there. They have written testimony in your file, which you may review at your pleasure. Any other opponent appearing here today? Seeing none, I will close that portion. I'm going to move to the neutrals. First neutral we have is John Goodyear, League of Kansas Municipalities. He appears. Good morning, John, and welcome to Federal and State Affairs.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you today and offer neutral testimony for the League on House Bill 2199. Now, if you were in committee last year, and a lot of you were, if you went back and listened to the hearing, or if you listened to the Senate's hearings last week, my testimony today is largely going to echo what I have said in the past. The League genuinely does not have a position regarding whether or not sports gaming should be legalized in the state, but however, we would ask that as the committee takes this up, as you start the conversation, that a share of revenue from sports wagers for local governments be considered. Now, in current law, gaming facilities contribute 3% of their revenue to local government entities, and this 3% is used to help offset the costs that are associated with having these gaming facilities in your community. As written, House Bill 2199 excludes the revenue from sports wagers from the definition of lottery gaming facility revenues, and no provision is made elsewhere for local governments to receive a share of the revenue that is going to be produced by these sports wagers. Sports betting is something that many people in this state want to see passed, and when it does pass, it's an activity that many residents of our state and residents of our neighboring states are going to be taking advantage of. This legislation is going to cause increased traffic to these facilities, and increased traffic means increased costs to local government. So just as the committee takes this up and as we're talking about where revenue is going to go, we would just ask that you consider apportioning some of that revenue for local governments to help offset that cost. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, for the opportunity to voice the concerns of our member cities, and I will stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you. I would ask you to maybe drop by my office one day and discuss that issue.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely. Next up is Russell Bryant with Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation, WebEx. Russell, are you on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, Chairman?
Russell?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please go
All
forward.
right. Very good. Good morning. Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to present today. My name is Russell Bryant. I'm an attorney for Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. As many of you know, the nation is located on its reservation in northeast Kansas. A recent economic study commissioned by the nation finds that the nation's activities provide nearly 3,000 jobs for Kansans and generate an estimated $24 million in state and local taxes annually. The nation is neutral as to whether or not Kansas should legalize sports wagering. However, to the extent that it does so, the nation does have an interest in offering sports wagering to its patrons through similar channels and formats. Accordingly, the nation does support the inclusion of Section 15 of the bill, which addresses sports wagering compact negotiations for on-reservation sports wagering. Beyond this, however, the nation also seeks the opportunity to offer sports wagering off reservation on internet and mobile sports wagering platforms, similar to the format proposed in the bill. The nation does anticipate that this component of wagering would be part of the Kansas regulatory framework. In particular, they would anticipate the revenue share with the state of Kansas would match that required of lottery gaming facility managers. And the nation is happy to offer language if the committee so desires. That's all I really have. I'm happy to stand for questions, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Next up, again on WebEx, is Steve Denny, Kansas Association of Addiction Professionals. Steve, are you on WebEx?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please go forward with your testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you for allowing me to submit testimony. My name is Steve Denny. I'm with the Kansas Association of Addiction Professionals. I've submitted written testimony, so I'll keep my comments brief. I think in summary, we are neutral with the warning and understanding that legalizing gambling will increase individuals with gambling disorders, which is a diagnosable condition that requires treatment, is associated with higher rates of suicide, higher rates of depression, and use of other substances. And if sports gambling is legalized, there will be an increase in access and an increase in usage, just like there is with any other substance or activity that has addictive potential. We would advocate for a couple things: that if it is legalized, that 2% of that funding be secured and appropriated towards addiction and treatment. We would ask that there would be infrastructure in the Kansas Department of Aging and Disabilities, particularly someone to be in charge and manage those funds. We also would ask that there be consideration to look at the original Problem Gambling and Addiction Fund that came out of the Kansas Lottery Act in 2007. Those funds were supposed to proportion dollars to fund addiction treatment and gambling treatment. However, those funds were not secured, and many of them were, for the most part, used to address budget shortfalls and crisis issues. And as addiction treatment professionals, we will be the ones that are asked to deal with crisis and behavioral health problems resulting from gambling. And we would ask that language be corrected, and we would ask that if the sports gambling bill does go forth, that there would be funding dedicated towards treatment of addiction and gambling disorder. I'll stand for questions at the appropriate time. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Steve. Last up that I have on neutrals is Nick Rediker. Are you on WebEx, Nick? Nick, are you on?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Go forward.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, members committee, for allowing me to speak today. My name is Nick Reinecker from Inman, Kansas. I've been coming up for the last 8 years advocating for a different issue, however, sort of involved with all this when we talk about the Problem Gambling and Addictions Grant Fund. I guess with my neutral testimony, not worrying about the actual legalization of sports wagering, there's two themes I would like to concentrate on, and that is accountability and understanding. In this time that I've been involved with the government process, I've tried to learn as much as I can about how it all works. And when it comes to the Problem Gambling and Addictions Grant Fund, I think there's some real big issues that need to be addressed. And then also, I think a more understanding of the DSM-5 as a referral source for clinicians in the Substance Use Disorder and Mental Health Diagnosis Authority needs to be taken up as well. I don't know if I can share my screen or not. Are you able to see that on the screen?
We are, sir.
Okay. I don't know that in section 36, it talks about adding $20,000 to the Problem Gambling and Addictions Grant Fund. And so my question specifically on section 36 is how much of that money is going to problem gambling services versus how much of that money will go to other addiction services and the like there. So in learning about the Problem Gambling and Addictions Grant Fund, I've gone over, there's some confusion between, excuse me?
You have 30 seconds.
Oh, I didn't know that we were timing the neutrals for that.
We are.
Okay. Well, you have my testimony. Maintenance of effort there says just say no to subplantation of money. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do some research about of how the block grants and the AAPS block grants work, but just some better understanding of the DSM-5 and how it relates, because a lot of these policies were done before the DSM was made into the DSM-5. It used to be the DSM-4. And then accountability at how the money is spent from the state-owned casinos making revenue for how we do public health policy. Thank you, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Committee, I would direct you to the today's agenda. We have one written neutral with the National Football League. I will now open it up for questions on either the opponents or the neutrals. Committee, your questions. Go ahead, Representative Arnberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions, I have a couple questions for Terry Humphrey.
Ms. Humphreys, if you would return to the podium. Representative, go right ahead.
The first question I have is, have you ever visited a dog farm, and if so, when and where?
I have not.
Okay, and the next one, if dog racing is so bad, then why do Greyhound adoption groups support racing in Kansas?
Well, let me just begin by saying that the organizations that spoke here today, REGAP is probably in the best position to answer this question because they have visited farms and they have firsthand experience with the abuse and the need to rehabilitate animals that have been damaged from greyhound racing or discarded from greyhound farms. So they can shed a lot of light on the abusive behaviors and the cruel treatment of these animals, and it's well documented.
Thank you. Further questions? Yes, Representative Epley.
This question is for Kate Fields of the Humane Society of Greater Kansas City, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Kate, are you on WebEx? Kate Fields. Kate Fields, are you on WebEx?
Did she get off, Chairman?
You want to redirect your question?
I'll redirect it, I guess, to Ms. Humphrey, if she could come back to the mic, please. And I don't know if she knows the answer to this, but I don't know who else to ask it to. Ms. Fields had opined that in 2008, when the Woodlands closed, it was a catastrophic event for greyhounds. And I can understand how that went down and how that occurred, and I get that. I think that was an extraordinary event in and of itself. I guess my question is, going forward, are there any other examples that she can cite other than the event in 2008 in the greater Kansas City area? Are you aware of any information that you can share with us today?
I am aware of numerous, as I explained before, numerous examples of animals that have been mistreated, not only in Kansas, but across the nation as it relates to greyhound racing. And I can provide the committee with plenty of those examples. And in fact, I believe that Cher Oliver sent all of you a video. So look in your inbox, and it was a investigation of greyhound racing, both breeders and facilities, and it also affected 3 states. This video speaks to the events in 3 states, one of which is Kansas. And so I would encourage the committee to look at that video, because it's part of also a national investigation, and I think it will enlighten you. Also, I know on this call, and if REGAP is still here, which would be Terry Garber, they have firsthand experience as a rescue organization rescuing animals from all over the country. And they've spent, I think, in essence of more than $1 million to do this rescue work. So they are the experts in this.
Yeah, I understand, Ms. Humphrey. I was just referring to the greater Kansas City area following that. Were there other events other than that?
Yes, and there are, and I think that they can enlighten you on that.
Perhaps Kate Fields can share that information with me
Yes.
after this meeting. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're most welcome.
Thank you. Representative Woodard, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Terry, my question's for you, if you just want to hang out with us for a few more minutes.
Maybe you should stay there. I don't.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you. I don't have it in your testimony, and I don't have my notes when we've heard this similar bills before. Can you tell me how many, if any, states currently have active greyhound racing occurring? And then I also believe Florida was one of the states that recently took a statewide vote, and if you could enlighten us on how that went.
Yes, sir. So indeed, there are only...
I would like, I'm going to interrupt for just a second.
Yes.
There is nowhere in this bill that says anything about greyhounds or horses. I just want to make, and again, I encourage the committee to read the bill. With that, you can go forward.
Okay. So indeed, yes, there are still 4 states that have 1 each active track in the United States. And I believe 2 of those states are actually phasing out greyhound racing, and I can give you exactly which 2 states are, I think by the end of 2021 and 2022. In Florida, where really most of the greyhound racing has occurred in the last 10 to 12 years, they voted in 2018 through initiative and referendum with almost 70% of Floridians voting on a constitutional amendment to ban greyhound racing. And effectively, all of those, whatever was left, will be phased out at the end of this year in December of 2021.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, respectfully, I only asked the question because we're hearing a lot of opposition testimony and got, of course, a letter from the Greyhound Racing Association. So I feel like long-term this bill might have an impact on greyhounds in the state. Thank you.
And it very well may, but also it would have effect on horse racing. And I'm not sure you have the answer, but I have a question. How many states do horse racing?
How many states do horse racing?
Has horse racing?
Mr. Chairman.
Other than Kentucky. I know Kentucky.
Yeah, I watch it, I'm aware. And so I don't know how many, I just don't.
All right, thank you very
My
much.
apologies.
Representative Miller.
Justin, in response to your comment that nowhere in here got you, right?
Gotcha. Thought you was going to ask something about horse racing, since I know that you probably own a lot of thoroughbreds.
Just greyhounds.
Okay, just greyhounds. All right. Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, I will close this portion of the bill. I want to advise, I'm going to try, we got 2 hearings tomorrow, but for Representative Heiberger's benefit, I'm going to try to work Adrian's Law tomorrow, so you're alerted to that. We'll have some time for that. I think the amendments have been drafted. Was that correct? Representative Reese.
Did we get the number of the bill? 2088.
So without further ado, I will open up bill introductions, but I know I have a question here from Representative Arnkamp, please.
Mr. Chairman, apologize for not asking this during the hearing, but wasn't really related to the opponent or the neutral. The bill does contain a lot of information or requirements, involvement of the Kansas lottery. Would it be possible to, and I know I can do it as an individual, but as a committee, to have the Kansas lottery give their thoughts on the bill, and if it was passed as is, how it would be implemented and the effects of various parts of the bill?
You know, they're not an advocate for any bill. They are neutral. But you think it would be helpful if I would only invite the director over, not on a bill, but an informal hearing, and allow, or probably an informational hearing, to let him come in and explain how they would implement it? Is that what you're asking for?
Mr. Chairman, if you would allow that, I think it would be very helpful. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any objections to that? The reason Representative Arnkamp chaired a subcommittee for me. He's very knowledgeable on this subject matter. If you think that would be helpful and there's no objection to the committee, I'll try to find some free time, and I will invite the lottery director over, and you can do an inquiry at that time. Would that be agreeable?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. It probably will not be until, this is Thursday, next week sometime, latter part of next week. But we can do that. Anything else for the good of the committee? Well, I'll see you on the floor at 11 o'clock. We are adjourned.